we, B'siyata D'Shmaya, continue our journey through Rebbe Nachman's Likutei Moharan, Schusay Yagan Aleinu. We are currently in the beginning of Torah Gimmel, Be'ezras Hashem. We began yesterday, if you remember, talking about the importance of hearing nigun from menagin kasher, v'hagun, a proper menagin, as opposed to a person who hears nagina mimenagin rasha, from a person whose song is emerging from a detrimental, impure place. And the Rebbe said that if a person would just start from the beginning, if a person hears nigun from a menagin rasha, so he says, so then it's going to be difficult or detrimental to that person's avodas Hashem. If everybody can mute on the chat, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. But if a person hears nigun from a menagin kasher, so then on the contrary, it's good for that person's avodas Hashem, as we will explain. And the Rebbe said, music emerges from a place of the tziparim, which we're going to learn about what those tziparim are. How do we know, or why is it that the Mitzvah has its or his purity is dependent upon these two holy birds, right? The tziparim chayes tahiros, and the Medrash says yavai klanya v'yichaper al klanya. Let those that chirp come, and they should be mechaper on the one who chirped, right? And the chirping over here is obviously a reference to lashon hara. Ki nilka machmas koilei. Why did he get saras? Because machmas koilei, because he had been inappropriately using his voice to castigate and to say something negative about someone else. Shediva lashon hara. Nimsa, so we find the mishahu kasher, that as a contrast to the person who is using his chirping, so to speak, inappropriately, and we said at the very end of yesterday's shir that is a concept of a negina, of song, right? Because to find the good in someone else, Rebbe Nachman teaches later in the sefer, the very last teaching in Likutei Moharan, Kama 282. If everybody can mute on the chat, thank you so much. 282. So Rebbe Nachman over there says that if a person finds the good points in other people, that's a nigun, right? Azamra lalekai ba'oidi. You can make a song by selecting the good points. It's like making up music. You just pick one note at a time out of all the other notes, and that composes a melody. Lashon hara is the opposite of that, where a person, chas v'shalom, is finding dafka the negative things. That's like a kind of song. It's like a kind of music, but it's obviously going to come from an impure place. So over here we find that if the birds are coming to be mechaper on that quote-unquote negative song of lashon hara that this person is speaking, that caused that person to be struck with tzaras, must be that holy nigun, which is the contrast of that, also comes from this concept of the birds. Now what are these birds? The Kasab Zayar, and it's brought in the Zayar Kaddish and elaborated upon by the Arizal. Music comes from the place where the Nevi'im draw down their prophecy from, which always in Kabbalah is associated with Netzach and Hoid. Netzach and Hoid is the place where the Nevi'im are drawing their prophecy. Netzach and Hoid is the place of prophecy. And those are the two birds. The two tziparim chayes tahiris as Netzach and Hoid, and the Nevi'im, right, who are down within the tachtis of Olam Asiyah and Malchus, are drawing their nevuah from that place of Netzach and Hoid that's being drawn down through the channel of Yisai, that the Navi is able, like we learned in the previous year, B'zois Yavi Aron El HaKodesh, a person enters in through the doorway of Malchus, whatever these things mean in Kavanas, Yichudim, or different experiences that can take a person up to that place, and they're able to draw down their nevuah from the Bechina of Netzach and Hoid that's up in that world that's being channeled down through Yisai. And that's going to be the place of the tziparim chayes tahiros, which means that music is drawn into the world from the place of prophecy. This is incredibly deep. We don't have time to go down into all this, and there are certain things that we can't even say in public really yet. But music comes from that place of nevuah. Music is very instrumental in facilitating people going up to that place. Music, always with music. Because music is connected to that realm. Music is not from this world. Music is drawn from the place where the prophets draw their prophecy from. So they draw their energy from the place where the malachim where the Nevi'im are drawing their Nevuah. L'chach, says Rebbe Nachman, therefore Nikra Menagin Chazin. That's why a Menagin, a person who sings, is called a Chazin, because Chazin is Milashon Chazon, which is a prophet. If everybody on the chat can please mute as you join. Thank you. A Chazin is a Chazon, is a seer. Hainu Lashon Nevuah. A chazan is mamish, like in a way, he's connecting to the concept of prophecy. Because you're drawing that place, you're drawing your negina from the place of prophecy. Now you can understand why it's so incredibly detrimental if it's the opposite of that, where it's not just that a person's bad enough to be in olam hazeh, but imagine drawing on higher forces of impurity, so to speak, in the klipa that exist, because again, in the spheres, the higher up you go, the more spiritually potent it is. And whatever exists, if the chaver can please chat, not chat, you're already chatting. If you could please mute, I'd so appreciate it. As you rise up, you go to a more spiritually exalted place. The whole structure of the sphere, says the Baal Tanya explains right at the beginning of Tanya, is mirrored by Eser Kisrin de Misavusa, right? The 10 sort of crowns or spheros of the ugly, dirty place. And the same dynamic exists, meaning the higher up you go, the more spiritually potent, and in this case, the more impure and the more detrimental it's going to be to a person's desire to try to connect to a holy place from within this world of Malchus Dasiya, which we learned in Torah Aleph means to find the Chochmah and the Seichel Sheish B'chal Davar, to understand that Hashem is really real, and a person can live plugged into that place. So now you can understand, if Negina de Kedusha, if the Chazin is drawing down Chazon, something like prophetic from that place where it's touching the Neshama in such a deep way, and it can bring a person to a higher state, then Chas v'Shalom, if a person is hearing music that emerges from Netzach Haid of Malchus the Klipa, right, of the other side of the, so to speak, the dark side, they can be incredibly detrimental and spiritually potent. So Rebbe Nachman says over here, Ukisha Menagin hu Rasha, when the Menagin in question is a Rasha, is a wicked individual, a person who's really not working on spirituality, a person who doesn't have yearning of holiness, or because I don't believe that there's really such a person, it's so subliminal that it's not emerging, right? And unfortunately, that person is operating on a level of trying to be magbir olam hazeh, and the Yetzer Hara is shoftan, is taking over. He is drawing down his negina or her negina from a place that's that is also aligned with these tziparim, but it comes from the place of the klipa. Because of Zayar, and it says in the Zayar Kodesh that ordinarily, and this gets a little bit technically complicated, but don't get stuck in it. Essentially, we're talking about the parts of Nukva, which exists in Atzilus. Not getting to the whole thing now, right? So you have the sort of the parts of the world of Atzilus has 10 spheres in it. But without getting into all the pratim now. Malchus is called Nukva de Atzilus, right? It's the feminine aspect within Atzilus. And in the klipa, Malchus de Atzilus de klipa, right, which means in the contrasting structure of impurity. So that Malchus is ordinarily in Bria, and it becomes Chochmah and Binah of Bria, which is the next world down, because all the worlds are interlocking, right? So Atzilus, Bria, right? So the Malchus, which is the lowest aspect, the Malchus, right? The Asiya of Atzilus, so to speak, I didn't say Asiya, but the Malchus of Atzilus becomes, in a certain sense, flips to become the Keser or Chochmah and Binah, right? Because it's all containing the Chochmah and Binah is within that Keser, which is Malchus, becomes down and it falls down into the Olam HaBriya. But the Zohar Kodesh says that when it hits Chatzos Laila, there's a window that opens between that Atzilus and that Bria, again, the Klipa of the dark side, because mamish the middle of the night, it's the greatest Hagabaras Hadin, which is why Tikka Chatzos is to be mamtik that din, but it's an incredibly spiritually detrimental and dangerous time. There's a window that opens up, and that Chachma and Bina, the Keser of Bria, the Klipa, right, of that dark side, rises up to draw from an even higher place, Chas v'Shalom, of darkness, and begins to draw down and be yoinik from the Netzach and Hoid, right, of that parts of Atzilus. It rises up aside Malchus to then be Makabel from the Yesod that's drawing down. If you have your spheres chart, it's always good to keep it with you. The Netzach and the Hoid and it can be a very dangerous time. And that's why the Zohar Kadosh says, "V'kad ispelig halayla." I'm sorry, "Ki atziparim shebeklipa yonki midadei hamalchus." That these tziparim of the klipa, which again fall down into Chochmah and Binah of Bria, are yonik. They draw their energy, what's called midadei hamalchus, from like the breasts of Malchus, which is netzach and hoid of Yesod of Malchus. Okay, that's very technical. So probably one of the most technical we're going to get in Rebbe Nachman, and that's why people turn to Tar Gimmel and they don't know what's going on, and they close the sefer. So it's a gate. It's a gate. But Baruch Hashem, we don't turn away from a gate. Piskli Shari Tzedek. But the Zohar says we got Ispelik Laila. Once it hits Chatzos, Kedein Kroiza Karuz. There's a voice that announces a pasuk in Mishlei that says Katziparim ha'achuzas b'pach b'hem yokshim b'nei Adam. Like birds that are trapped that are stuck in a trap. Bahem yukshim b'nei Adam. That's how they trap, or kahem, like them, yukshim b'nei Adam. Human beings are trapped, because at that moment there's a very, very strong hagbara sadin. And again, just how that filters down into our world. The most detrimental experience of music, from the standpoint of Satan, Malach HaMavet Yetzer Hara, is probably music that brings to arayos, right? Which is Ikra the Yitzur Bisha, like we learned in Ice Bays. Everybody knows that in clubs. The party starts at midnight. That's the big. You mamish see it in Adam Hazeh, and the music hits and klipa. Whole thing is a klipa. So you find mamish that there's an Indian dafka at night where detrimental music that is rooted in netzach hoid of Yesod of Malchus, right? Because it's Netzach and Hoid that are filtered down through the Yesod and then channeled down into Malchus, which is Olam Hazeh. There's a special channel that's opened up, and Nebuch people who are disconnected and drawing on Menagnim Rishayim, right? Whose whole music is designed to elicit within a person ego and self-gratification and everything that's not godly and everything that's not other focused in every Bechina, that happens at night. That happens mamash at midnight. So if you think about the hepech of that, a person is listening to music, the menagin kasher, that's the time. That's mamash the time. And the question is, what form is music menagin kasher that's going to be protective for a person at that spiritually precarious time of chatzos laila, where that window opens up, right? And bria, or Chochmah Binah bria, or Keser bria, rises up to be mamshich down more spiritual energy from the parts of Atzilos as Nukva da Atzilos. What can protect us? Says Rebbe Nachman, do you want to know what the rectification is? Where a person, and over here it's, people make this mistake, over here it seems like this is l'chatchila. If you want to be able to listen to every kind of music, so you can do the following. But of course, if you look at Eitzes Mevaris, it's not. It's that a person will be protected, right? That if you just should so happen to hear a niggun like that, it won't affect you. So what's the tikkun? Is when a person is learning at the nighttime Torah Shabbal Peh Hainu Gemara. To learn Gemara at night. Now what's the connection between Gemara and night? Well, first of all, what's the connection between Gemara and Shira? So we know the Torah is called the Shira Adam Kis V'Lechem as Hashira Hazois, right? Or David HaMelech says Zmiris Hayelichukecha, and the Torah is connected to a Shira. The Torah is a song. Hazinu. It's the Torah is a melody. And so you find that Torah does have this aspect, especially the music of a daf Gemara. It has a cadence, it has a tone, it has a melody, it has a rise and a fall, an ebb and a flow, a verse and a chorus. The Gemara is very much bound up with the energy of music. But the Rebbe says not only is Torah in and of itself, Megan doesn't protect, because it itself is the concept of holy music, holy melodies. But says the Rebbe, Torah is particularly aligned with the nighttime. And not just any Torah, this Torah Shabbal Peh of Gemara, She'i Bechinas Laila. Because that part of the Torah Kedosha, which is Torah Shabbal Peh, is compared to nighttime. It was developed in exile, it was developed in Galus, it was developed in Chutz La'aretz. It's connected to nighttime. K'di Isa b'Medrash, because it says in the Heilige Medrash, that K'shaya Moshe Bahar Arba'im Yoim Va'arba'im Laila, what Moshe Rabbeinu was on the top of Har Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights, Says the Gemara, says the Medrash, he didn't know when was day and when it was night. When he was learning Torah B'Ksav, he knew it was day. When he was learning Torah Sheba'al he knew it was night. So you find that there was a special connection between learning Shas, learning the Gemara at nighttime. Nimsa Torah Sheba'al Peh, so we find that Torah Sheba'al Peh is an aspect of the nighttime. And he brings from another place, a Gemara in Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin Chav Daled and Aleph, this is well known. Says the Pasuk in Eiv, you've placed me in darkness, Kimesei Olam, says the Gemara is a Talmud Bavli. It's a wild thing. If the Gemara didn't say it, you wouldn't be able to say it, That yes, Klape Nister, Klape Chochmah Emes, Klape Likutei Moharan, Klape even Torah B'Ksav, Torah Sheba'al Peh is dark. It's dark because it's full of machlokes, and it's dark because it's difficult. It's dark because you have to work through every single nakuda, and you have to be mevar the emes. And according to the R Yaakov, that's a tikkun. That's not stam that it just happens to be that way. We're doing tikkunim, ruchnias tikkunim. That's why in order to understand learning nigla, you have to learn nister. Otherwise, you don't really understand that it's an avoida, not just an avoida to learn the Gemara and come to halacha, right? Because practically we need to know what to do. We're doing tikkunim and birurim. Because klipa is associated with suffix, with doubt. That's the energy of Amalek. The whole Gemara is filled, again, you'll understand in what way, with the energy of Amalek, because it's all suffix. The whole Gemara is full of suffix. Every single detail of halacha is full of machlokes, so we don't know what the emes is. When a person works through the sugya, uses klalei hapsak, based on klalei Torah Sheba'al Peh, and comes to a halacha brura, says the Ari, that's the greatest tikkun in the world. You just took something that was in a realm of suffix, and you're moitzi it la'ar. That's the reason that according to the Ari, and Rav Chaim Vital, and Kabbalah, Talmud Bavli is compared to nighttime. It's dark. And that's why that was the avodah primarily in Gullus. And now we're transitioning a little bit, and now our curriculum needs to shift a little bit. We've gotten to Libuna de Halacha. Now it's time not just to deal with Sur Meirah, but now it's time to draw down the Asay Toiv of Nister, of Chochmah Emes. That's all bound up with the Geulah. That's what we're doing in our chabura now. This is Geulah Torah. We've spent 2,000 years working through the sugyas, and we still need that aspect of the hein gufei halachas, but we have to be focusing on Pnimius. We have to be focusing on Nisr. We have to be focusing on the Torah of the Tzaddik Emes. Be that as it may, that's the aspect of B'machshakim Hoshivani, said Talmud Bavli Uksiv, V'lachoshech Kar Laila. It's not just darkness. Darkness is nighttime. So here's another source where you have Torah Sheba'al Peh is correlated with the nighttime, and that means that that's a tikkun for what happens at nighttime. What happens at nighttime? The tziparim, the klipa, that place of negative music, is able to draw a much higher proliferation of spirituality that can be incredibly detrimental. So if you want to be protected from a minhag in Russia, if a person happens to be hearing you're in a certain place, wherever it is, and you're exposed to that kind of music,
in the pub, you should be going to the
right. No, so that's how people learn it. Meaning, if you want to be protected, so you can sit and listen to Kol, Midei D'Alma, as long as you learn Gemara at night. Of course, this is not what it means, right? But if you should so happen to be, whatever it is, you're in a place. This is a shmira naira'ah, and that's a chiddush, and a very practical chiddush Yehuda that Rebbe Nachman is drawing down. Hainu al yedei sheyilmad shas. There's a concept that shows up a lot in Likutei Moharan and another sefer Pnimius, that the kana, which is the esophagus, the voice box, the place where the voice emerges, has shis iskain, has like 6 different nodes, 6 different notches, and shas, which is the aspect of the shisha sidrei, the shisha sidrei mishnah, are connected to the aspect of the 6 iskan shabakana. When a person learns Torah Sheba'al Peh, Dafka Mishnah, that evolves into the Gemara, it's all Mishnayos, right? It's just the Pirush of Mishnayos, it's Gemara, right? So when you learn the Pirush of the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah at night, that is a tikkun for the kol de klipa that emerges from the Mitzayra, from the Bechina of Lashon Hara, from the Bechina of finding everything bad in the world, from the Bechina of everything suffix and doubt and ego-oriented and self-gratifying and despairing in the world. That emerges from that kind of music that causes a person to sink into despair. Shemehem Yotzei Hakol. V'zeh, and that's pshat in the pasuk, Kumi Roini Ba'alayla, rise and sing in the nighttime. Hainu shetia tekuma laharina. Says Rebbe Nachman, that's what it means on a simple level. But deeper, it means kumi raini. You want that your music should have an aliyah? Kumi raini? The answer is Ba'alayla. The way to fix the rina, that it should have a tekuma, that it should rise up, is Ba'alayla. Hainu shetia tekuma laharina. Hainu aideh halayla, which is, like we already learned, B'machshak Shivani, right? And is Talmud Babli, Cheshach Kar Laila, and Moshe Rabbeinu learned Torah Shabbat at night. That's Gemara Shas. But if a person is learning Torah Shalei Lishma, especially Gemara, which is the primary place where a person can learn Shalei Lishma, because that's what's respected by the world, can't learn Likutei Moharan Shalei Lishma, you don't get anything out of it. Today a little bit more. If you know Likutei Moharan, it's like, okay, people they'll raise your eyebrows at you. You're like a strange anomaly. But if people learn Gemara Shalei Lishma, you can become a Talmud Chacham. Person wants to become a Rav. Then the limud is not so much with chashivas. So that's true for Gemara anytime. But when you learn at nighttime, right? That even if a person is learning Shalei Lishma at the nighttime, there's a chut shel chesed. There's a special kind of strand of kindness that comes down upon a person to protect that person from this machshava, that will then enable them to tap into the tikkun of that even a limud Shalei Lishma b'shul she'iskar Rabbi, which ordinarily doesn't have the same shmira. At nighttime, there's a special chut shel chesed that comes down that enables a person to be protected both from that machshava, and therefore the learning enables that person to be protected from nigun that's coming from a rasha. Now the Isa b'kisvei Ari, it's brought in the Kisvei Ari, and we already discussed this. Kitziparim shabaklipa hein moichin shabamalchus de klipa. These birds of the klipa are the aspect of the moichin, the intellectual processes of malchus of the klipa. Because again, we said that every structure Kabbalistically, when you talk about the spheres and the olamos, which we discussed in our 5th shiur, we gave a little bit of an overview, but it was way too quick, but a little bit, is paralleled on the side of impurity. Over here, we're speaking about the parts of Atzilus that contains within it Malchus, which is Nukva, right, which is the lowest and the feminine aspect. We said that the Tziparim Shebaklipa are ordinarily rooted in Bria, because they sink down in a lower place. Where are they yonik from? They're yonik from Netzach and Hoid of Yisaid of Malchus. Netzach and Hoid as they're channeled down through the Yisaid into Malchus of Nukva. Now, in Kabbalah, everything is relative. Everything is erechin. So ordinarily, when you speak about moichin, you speak about Chochmah and Binah, or moichin for zah, right? For zer ampim, which is the 7 midas from chesed down to Yisai. What's the moichin of that? What powers that intellectually, right? What's the force? The force that powers it energetically, otherwise just a body without a brain, right? So the moichin is Chochmah Binah das, right? That's the moichin that powers the guf, just like in our body. But in Kabbalah, everything is relative, and it keeps on same copying over down and down and down. So ordinarily, you're right, Chochmah Binah are the moichin. But Klape Malchus, Netzach and Hoid, in relation to Malchus, are the moichin locally of Malchus. Now Netzach and Hoid aren't moichin in and of themselves, because they're only the midas Klape Chochmah Binah. But I have a secret for you. Chochmah and Binah aren't moichin on themselves. They're mekablim klape what's higher than them, and so on and so forth, until you come to the ikar v'sharsha, the kula almin, that isn't mekabel from anything chas v'shalom. So you see, it's not any more of a chiddush that Netzach and Hoid are the moichin and Malchus than that Chochmah and Binah are the moichin and V'zah. You understand? Because they're all kalim. They're all kalim, and that's why it says in Pasach Eliyahu that without a Kodesh Baruch Hu's force, flowing down through the spheres, Gufbal and Neshama, they're all dead. Even Keser Elyon in the Zohar Kadosh is Ukma Lagabe de Ein Sof. Keser Elyon, pure white blinding light we can't imagine, is dark in relation to the Ein Sof. It's nothing. So it's all relative. So in this sense that we're speaking about the parts of Malchus, in this sense, the tziparim that are yoinik from Netzach and Hoid, that's called the yoinik from the moichin of Malchus. What are the moichin of Malchus? You don't have to go all the way up to Chochmah and Binah. More locally, the moichin of Malchus are Netzach and Hoid, right, that are channeling the energies through Yisai down into Malchus. Okay? I hope that's clear. Now, on the flip side, in the side of holiness, how do you build up malchus to kedusha? How do you build up a world that's bursting with the presence of the divine? How do you build up a world of Mashiach? The way you do that is through holy niguna. Holy niguna. Nigun to kedusha, that's drawing where? From the moichin of malchus, which is netzach v'haid, which is the place where the prophets are receiving from, which is a place of a higher perception of godliness, not chas v'shalom, a lower perception of godliness. Lefikach, therefore, neshtabach David lefnei Shaul. What's David? David is Malchus. David is David Malka Mashiach. He was praised before Shaul as Yodea Nagain. Says the Rebbe, what's the side of Yodea Nagain? The side of Yodea Nagain is that we're referring to Nigun, which drawing from Netzach and Hoyd Kedusha, which are the moichin of Malchus, is Yodea Nagain. It's music that's transmitting das, not the opposite, chas v'shalom, that it's music that's absolutely meaningless and that increases within a person's life a sense of meaninglessness and a sense of shtus and a sense of ruach shtus, which is the Yetzer Hara hu satan hu amalach hamaves. David HaMelech Malchus de Kedusha. If everybody can please mute on the chat, it's disturbing a little bit. I'm so sorry. David HaMelech Malchus de Kedusha is Yodea Nagain. His music is full of moichin. Ki anegina hu binyan hamalchus, because his niguna is, or negina is binyan hamalchus lekach roi hu lamalchus, because he knew how to play music, because he knew that how to draw down from that place of music which draws from netzach and hoyd, which is the moichin. Memela, his malchus was a malchus de kedusha. He's roi to be melech, and that's why he was praised before Shaul as a yodea nagain, right? Because the binyan of malchus de kedusha draws from the moichin of malchus, which is netzach v'hoyd, which is the place of Nevuah, which is the place of music, of Nagina. And that's also why it says about David HaMelech, he's describing himself, Me'achar alais heviyai. He was brought from behind the animals, right? Because he was a shepherd. And so he was taken from behind the animal pen. He was drawn.
He's a young sheep.
I think so, yeah, in this context. He was brought from behind the animals that he was shepherding, and that's where he came from. Says Rebbe Nachman, it's much deeper than that. What's a young sheep? What's a young animal? It's called a manik. It's nursing from its mother. David HaMelech, you want to know where his malchus was drawn from? Me'achar, says Rebbe Nachman, hainu me'achar ha'menikos. He was brought from the place behind the source where the Nevi'im are yonik from. Me'achar alais heviyoi. David HaMelech's malchus was from Yodea Nagain. Yodea Nagain means that he was drawing his energy from the place of chazon, right, the chazin, that comes from the place of prophecy, which is netzach and hoida malchus, which are the moichin of malchus. So it's Yodea Nagain, me'achar alais heviyoi. Because again, that's the place where the prophets are nursing from, so to speak. And that's the sod of that pasuk in Tehillim. So now that we've learned this Gilui, we can return to Rabbi Bar Chana, which we learned yesterday. And he says, it appeared to me the certain akrukta, which we said is croak, which is a frog or a toad. Upers Rabbeinu Shmuel, and the Rashbam says Tzvardeya. The Rashbam over here tells us it's a frog. Says Rebbe Nachman, Hainu Tzipor Deya. This is a frog, Tzipor Deya. Tzvardeya is Tzipor Deya. What's Tzipor Deya in this context? Tzipor is the two birds, right? The Tziparim Chayas Taharas. Deya, because they're rooted in the place of Netzach Void, which becomes the Moichin of Malchus. I'm going to say something that I hope I don't regret later, and I hope that the Chevra here are able to understand, and whoever's listening, that today there are certain substances that people are taking for therapeutic purposes that can enable a person to enter into a much higher realm of consciousness, right? They have a certain cultural drag and draw on them because of misuse and abuse, especially in the 60s and 70s, and they fall under the class of narcotics in a certain sense that's called psychedelics, right? And so everybody has their immediate reaction to that viscerally because we're stuck in a culture that has very strong opinions on these things, but we don't usually look into or research these things unless it's shaykh for us or for people that are around us who are suffering and have the capacity to gain healing therapeutically, which is being proven in universities all around the world by using these substances. Psychedelic comes from a Greek word which just means consciousness expanding. And there are many different kinds. Some come from plants, some come from trees. And there are substances that enable a person to expand their consciousness. And this is very big now in the mental health world. You may have heard, right? There are many, many studies being done. It's being legalized for therapeutic purposes in many states in America. University of London has a very big segment that's studying these things. And fascinatingly enough, one of the most potent, which they call the God molecule, actually, in contrast to the spirit molecule, which takes a person to a different place, it comes from a frog. It comes from a toad, the Sonoran desert toad. Its chemical name is 5-MeO-DMT. But it comes from the Sonoran desert toad. Tzipar Dea. Fascinating thing, that there's a connection between this frog and Dea, and consciousness expansion, which enables a person to go almost to a place of, I don't know, it's like a hint of nevuah. It's not clear. And with the deluge of mental health / hashkafic / spiritual shilas and birurim, what is it, what isn't it, is it objective, subjective, these are huge sugyas. I'm just mentioning that it's not for naught that at the time that Rebbe Nachman's Torah is being brought into the world, all of a sudden there are substances that are becoming available that enable a person to really heal, to really, really heal from their traumas, to really heal from things that they're suffering from. And one of those substances is a tzfardea. That Rebbe Nachman reveals to us is tzipar dea, right? That there's a connection between this frog, which is like the most unlikely thing in the world, that that the secretion of a frog can take a person to a place of dea. Adkan that, if we have to censor that afterwards, we may. But please onboard that information maturely and responsibly.
You also have some of the frogs that are the most lethal.
Yes.
Okay,
That's the klipa. That's the zelul mazeh. Beautiful. Dahavi ki akrad hagroinia. See, he says that frog is like the city of Hagroinia. What's Hagroinia? Zokt from a pasuk in Yeshayahu Melashin krabigarain. It's a reference to the throat. It's a reference to dibur. So the frog tzipar dea is connected to song chazin, chazon. Where does it draw from? Netzach and Hoid of Yisoid, right, of Malchus. We draw the Nagina from that place. We said, how big is Hagroinia? Shitin bate. 60 houses. What's 60 houses? If you want to fix up Hagroinia, which is Karabigarin, which is bound up with Ahu Akrukta, Shitin bate. The way to fix that is Shitin bate. It's unbelievable. By learning Shas. By learning Shisha Sidrei Mishnah and its Pirush, which is Shas. So Rabbi Bar Chana is charting for us a technology for how to deal and operate within certain realms in this world that could theoretically be negative. And that's Ahu Akrukta, Sipar Dea, which if it's not used properly is Yakrada Groinya. It can produce negative song. How do you deal with negative song? Shitin Bate. O Pirush Rabbeinu Shmuel, and the Rashbam tells us on this line, Talmuda Ka'amarle. The Gemara is saying that line was spoken not by Rabbi Bar Chana, but by the Gemara. He just wants to let you know, Rabbi Bar Chana is reporting, I saw a frog, and it was as big as the city of Akrukta. Then the Rashbam tells us, the Gemara then asks, Talmuda Ka'amarle, Kamahave, Shitin Bate. Just letting us know aside, by parenthetically, how big was the city of Agrunia? 60 houses. Talmuda Ka'amarle. Says Rebbe Nachman, no, the Rashbam's Pirish is managed the side of this. That Talmudika Amarle means that the Gemara is telling us Shitin Bate is a reference to the Talmud. Talmudika Amarle. It's telling you to learn Talmud. You see? The Rashbam is giving you a pirish on the side of what Shitin Bate is. Not that just, you should know, this part of the Sugya is the Gemara talking, not Rabbi Chana talking. No. It's telling you Talmudika Amarle. That's the side of Shitin Bate, of the six Masechtas. Now, Asa Tanina Bala, came a snake, and Bala, it swallowed it. Perish Rabbeinu Shmuel, Rabba Ka'amarle. Now it lets you know that it's Rabbi Bar Chana talking again. Says Rebbe Nachman, al pisoid, what's it talking about? What's this snake that swallowed the frog? Rabba Ka'amarle. Hainu al yidei shaloim et shaloi lishma. He wants to be a Rebbe. He wants to be a Rav. Rabba Ka'amarle. He's learning Gemara because Rabba Ka'amarle. Because he wants to be a big Talmud Chacham. That's the snake that can swallow the Shitin Bate. Because he had Shitin Bate that was protecting you from the Akrada Groinya, from the music that's drawn from the Tzvardea, from the Tzipar Dea. And what can get in the way of that? The snake. What's the snake? Says Rabbeinu Shmuel, Rabba Ka'amarle. The snake is that a person's learning Shalei Lishma, right? To have a position. That will swallow up that Shmira. That a person will be learning so that he can be called a Rebbe. Says the Gemara weiter, Asa Pushkansa, Oper Shabin Shmuel Oyrev, came a big raven, which is called an Oyrev, says Rebbe Nachman, Oyrev Nekeva, Nukva. Hainu al Yidei Shel Yilmad Balayla, says the Rebbe, Oyrev is Erev. If you learn Shaloi Lashma, but it's at night, Erev, Malashan Arvis, Ubala, Hainu Umegan Alav Min HaNachash, because the Nachash is attacking the frog, and the Oyrev is attacking the Nachash. That will protect you. What's Oyrev? Erev. To learn Gemara, not in the day, but at night. Then even if Rabbaka Amar Le, meaning even if a person's learning for the wrong reason, the Oyrev will protect you. Uslik Yasabi Lana. And then it rose up and it settled on a tree. And Perish Amar Shah, the tree is Bechinas Avram. Shekasav Etzla V'yita Eshel. It says that Avram planted an Eshel. Shebechinas Chesed. That's the Chut Shel Chesed. Right, that it's sitting in a tree that's able to be drawn down onto a person who's learning Gemara Balayla, Oyrev, even though he's learning Bishul Shizkar Rebbe, which is the snake. Still, it's going to be able to protect a person from the akrada groina, from the throat of the frog. From the throat of the music that's drawing from the tzipar dea, which is netzach and hoid of yisoid of malchus de klipa. And all that would protect the person. And Rabbi Baruchana ends, look how powerful that tree is, meaning look how powerful this chut shel chesed is, that it's able to protect the person who, even though he's learning Shaloi Lashma, which mamish was the snake, mamish a serpent, that swallowed up whatever goodness he would have gained, that the chut shel chesed of learning Gemara at night is so powerful, it's able to protect. He was shocked that a Kadosh Baruch Hu's chesed, which is a bechin of chesed Avram, which is a bechin of the Eshel, which is a bechin of the tree that the raven is sitting on, is so powerful that it's able to protect even a person who's learning Shaloi Lishma. With this we could understand the progression of the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. Says Rebbe Nachman, when a person hears holy music, it builds up your malchus. When a person has malchus, they're a rav. The Gemara says, Man Malke, who are the kings? Rabbanan. Rav is connected to Malchus, having a leadership position is Bechin of Malchus. When a person hears holy music, Gavalt, Aseilich Rav, then you really become a Rav. Not a Rav, the Klipa, like person just wants to be a Rav. But Mamish, in a holy way, a person is lit up with holy concepts and wanting to communicate holy spiritual visions. Now, how are you going to do that? Zal Yedei Kinei Lecha Chaver. If you want to be Mesakin your Malchus, which is called Aseilich Rav, then there's only one way. Kinei Lecha Chaver. Hainu Al Yedei Kaneh, which is the throat, the voice. Shakol yatzam imanu shemachaber ashnei kruvim lias panim bepanim k'mar ish v'loyos v'zman sheYisrael oisim ritzayna shal makom, is by uniting these two birds, which are Netzach and Hoid of the Ar and HaKodesh. Not getting to the whole Kabbalah of it now, but very basically, Netzach and Hoid are connected to the lips. The mouth is Malchus, the tongue is Yisoid. In the parts of Atzilus that's all wrapped up into the face, the Sfasayim are Netzach and Hoid. Where did Nevuah come from? It came from on top of the Aron, from the place that was Mibein Shnei HaKruvim. Why? Because the Kruvim are Netzach and Hoid, and from there emerged Malchus, which is the Baskal, Malchus, right? The feminine, that aspect of Nevuah that's emerging from there, but it came from the lips. The lips are the Kruvim, and the Kruvim is Netzach and Hoid. And so when a person is able to be singing or to be hearing holy music from holy sources, this is causing a person to do the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It turns the Kruvim in alignment, and they begin to communicate messages to the person from beyond. So, Aseilich Harav, if you want to be Masakin your Malchus, there's only one way. Kinei Lecha Chaver. Use your kana, your voice, to sing and to hear holy music from others who are singing in a holy way. L'cha chaver, to be mechaber, the two kruvim, that they should face one another and be in alignment with two lips, the netzach and hoy, that are the binyan of malchus, to enable a holy message to emerge. Right? And that's going to cause anaseh l'charav. Azai. When a person's malchus is complete, and then you can mamish do whatever you want because you have a lot of power, because your voice is powerful and people are going to listen to you, and you can literally bring someone to life, or you can kill someone else, chas v'shalom, which is very, very dangerous, and it's something that I personally, in my position, am terrified of all the time, because I can hurt people, because people look to me for advice, and it just happened yesterday. I tried my very best to be compassionate in a conversation. It wasn't taken the right way, and I hurt someone. And I'm in excruciating pain because of it. So mamish, whatever I'm learning is always, it's mamish speaking to me. That somehow, even despite our best efforts to be as gentle, as compassionate, you never know what you're saying, that a person needs to hear something else, and you could hurt a person. Chas v'shalom, chas v'shalom, chas v'shalom. I don't want to hurt anybody. So you have to be so careful if you have a bechina of malchus. You can chas v'shalom bring someone to life. Chas v'shalom the opposite. Nimtza elam charev. Person can go around with an authoritative voice of a malchus and killing people and putting people down and finding the negative in a person and singing bad songs, of finding nekudas shacharis, not nekudas taivos in people. Lazeh amar. So the Mishnah says, Aselach harav, you were misakin your malchus through knelach hachaber, through bringing together these two things. So you better go around and judge people favorably and only find their good points. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want that people should go around destroying the world. He created the world to be settled. He created the world to be miyushav. He wants us to bring about holy songs, and not chas v'shalom the opposite. Let's just power through to the end of 1 minute. He says that's why people say today shachazanim him shaitim ve'enam bnei deya. People say that the chazanim are all shaitim. They're all fools. They don't know anything. Ki asha malchus the kedusha begalos, because in the time of Rebbe Nachman, malchus the kedusha was mamish in exile. Al kein anagino shinim shechas me'asir denavim, because the song that draws from the place of the prophets, bebechinas moichin bedas the malchus the kedusha, from the place of the moichin, like we explained, the netzach and hoid, which are Chochmah and Binah. Ya'achsha malchus is in galus. Halkein hanagina nefgemes. So the song is blemished. Halkein chazanim b'lei das. So the chazanim are singing, but without any das. They don't have that opportunity to draw down into their songs holy moichin. And we should translate that, I believe, with all my heart and soul, as now, meaning it was Rebbe Nachman's asid, but it's our current present. Sheyes ala malchus the kedusha, or malchus of holiness, is emerging. The Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz, and it's going to be revealed that Hashem is the melech al kol haaretz. Aretz is always malchus. As I tesale v'sushlam anagina b'chinas das the malchus the kedusha shemisham b'mshechas anagina kanal. Everything will be rectified. Music will change. V'zeu, and that's the pasuk at Tehillim. Just stick for this one thing. Ki melech kol haaretz alekim. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu is melech on the whole world, which means malchus the kedusha is fixed. Zamru maskil. Zamru maskil. The Negunim will become vessels for maskil, for Chochmah and Binah, for Moichin. And we're seeing that. I believe this will end. I believe we're seeing that today. Already from the time of Reb Shlomo, that his music was communicating messages. Mordechai ben David, Avram Fried, they were using their music not just like a fun thing to sing at a wedding. They were communicating messages to us today. Abi Rottenberg, here you have Joey Newcomb, you have in the Israeli world Yishai Ribo, Chanam Ben Ari. This is Zamru Maskil. This is not entertainment. People go and they mamish absorb a whole worldview. It's arguable that those Zamarim, Chazonim are having more of an impact on Am Yisrael than any speech of any gadol of anything. They're impacting the consciousness of Am Yisrael, and that's because this is the emergence of Malchus that's drawing from Netzach and Hoy. That's a prophetic vision that the singers are drawing down, and it's emerging from the place of Chochmah, and that's Ki Melech Kol Haaretz Alekim Zamru Maskil Ki Hazai Ki Hashem LeMelech Kol Haaretz Yisala Malchus Yedusha. When Malchus rises, as I Zamru Maskil Hanisha Chazanim. It's prophecy. What we're reading now is a prophecy. We're seeing it today. Hazamarim Hamezamrim yu bedas ubeseichel. They will be communicating moichin al yidish yis'al malchus di kedusha v'yikablu anegina misharsha shebegedusha. They'll be drawing down music from the source in holiness shebechinas das umoichin shamalchus di kedusha keniskala el. Be'ezras Hashem will finish up Torah Gimmel tomorrow. I want to let you ever know Torah Gimmel is one of the most kabbalistically intricate, so you don't have to get scared off if you got lost a little bit. Go back to review if you need to, review and review and review, but don't get scared off by this. Okay? Ashreinu Yidin, Ashreinu, Ashreinu Matech Lakeinu. Thank you for everybody who joined us on the chat, and wishing everybody a beautiful Rosh Chodesh Shvat. Chodesh, good Chodesh, Yashar Kach. Thank you.
Ani habe ואתה האב שלי שכל כך אוהב אותי האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שאני